You've just woken up in Europe, year 1347. The good news, you're alive. The bad news, so are the fleas. You blink awake, expecting maybe the wear of an AC unit, a cozy duvet, or at the very least your IKEA mattress that only squeaks when you move too much. Instead, you're lying on what feels like a hay bale that lost a fight with a wet dog. Your bed is a sack of straw so old it probably has senior citizen rights. It's alive with fleas, lice, and bed bugs. You scratch, they laugh, and you realize personal hygiene is less daily routine and more biannual event. Your house. Yeah, forget the Pinterest vibes. It's a wooden shack the size of a modern bathroom. One room. Dirt floor, zero privacy. You, your parents, your siblings, your grandparents, and a cow all share the same oxygen. And I say oxygen, generously, because the air is basically soup, equal parts smoke, sweat, and manure. You're basically slow cooking in your own family's body odor. The smell. Imagine if someone bottled gym socks, barnyard, and wet ashtray into a fragrance. Medieval Yuda toilet. You don't wear it, it wears you. Breakfast. Hope you like disappointment. Today's menu. Rock-hard bread that could double as a self-defense weapon. Wash it down with a mug of weak, lukewarm ale. No coffee, no tea, no orange juice. Just grain-flavoured sadness. Your immune system is already waving a white flag. And before you even think it, no, you're not a knight. You're not galloping off into the sunset with shining armour and maidens swooning. Statistically speaking, you're a peasant. Your daily quest is not slay the dragon. It's don't starve, don't freeze, and don't step in fresh cow poop inside your own house. But hold on, it gets worse. Word on the muddy street is that ships are arriving at port cities full of corpses. Dead sailors, strange swellings, and fevers that make people drop faster than your Wi-Fi during a Zoom call. People are whispering, but nobody has a clue what's really coming. And here's the kicker. You don't have antibiotics. You don't have running water. You don't even know what germs are. Your best medical option is some guy in a bird mask shoving herbs up your nose. Spoiler, it won't help. So welcome to 1347. A year where survival isn't measured in decades. It's measured in weeks. And you're already on borrowed time. So, you thought last night's sleep was raw. Let's break down just how cursed your bed really is. First off, call it a bed, and every medieval peasant would laugh in your face. It's not a bed. It's a sack of mouldy straw held together by wishful thinking and rat droppings. The straw is old, damp, and poking through the cloth like tiny spears. Congratulations. You've basically invented the world's first acupuncture, except instead of relieving stress, it just gives you tetanus. Oh, and don't forget the mattress is already home to a thriving ecosystem. Fleas, lice, bed bugs. Tiny little vampires with a personal vendetta against you. You scratch, they multiply. Your scalp feels like a rave for insects, and trust me, you weren't invited. Pillows, hilarious. If you're lucky, you've got a sack of hay to shove under your head. If you're unlucky, it's just your arm, which is now permanently numb. And blankets? One scratchy wool thing that smells like it was stolen off a wet sheep last week. Spoiler, it was. Now let's talk about temperature control. In summer, the straw turns your bed into a sauna. In winter, it's more like a medieval ice bucket challenge that never ends. Forget thermostats. You survive by shivering aggressively until your body accepts defeat. And cleanliness, non-existent. You don't get to wash your sheets. The concept of laundry is reserved for your one and only outfit, which you scrub maybe once a season in river water full of dead fish and questionable sludge. The bed, it never gets cleaned. At best, you throw out the straw once a year. At worst, you just keep adding layers like some kind of disease, flavoured lasagna. Oh, and did I mention you're not alone? Your family probably crams into this bed with you. Yep, 5 people stacked together like medieval sardines. Plus the cat, if you're lucky enough to have one. And honestly, the cat is the best roommate you've got. It at least kills the rats. Compare this to your modern mattress. Springs, foam, maybe even a weighted blanket. Back in 1347, your only weighted blanket is your dad's leg crushing you in the middle of the night. And while you're scratching your lice bites at 3 a.m, keep in mind the plague hasn't even hit you yet. This is just the warm-up act. Your bed alone is trying to kill you. It's a slow, itchy, uncomfortable countdown until something worse knocks on your door. So go ahead, try to roll over and get comfy. Just don't think about what else might be crawling in there with you. Spoiler, it's never just straw. The rooster crows. Not your iPhone alarm with a soothing melody, but a real, angry rooster standing in your living room, pooping next to the fire pit. You groan, scratch your flea bites and realize, yep, still 1347, still alive, still miserable. You sit up and instantly regret it. Your back feels like someone beat you with a shovel all night. That's not bad posture. That's just medieval life. Your spine is one wrong sneeze away from permanent disability. Now, let's talk hygiene, or rather, the complete lack of it. There's no morning shower to rinse off last night's sweat. No peppermint toothpaste. Your toothbrush is your fingernail if you even bother. And your breath. Imagine if a garlic clove married a sewer rat and they had children. That's you. Everyone smells the same level of rancid, so no one cares. Congratulations, you've just discovered equality. As for deodorant, forget it. You smell like a mix of smoke, damp straw and livestock. And speaking of livestock, don't trip over the cow or step in the chicken mess while stumbling toward the door. Indoor plumbing hasn't been invented yet, so when nature calls, you've got two options: a communal bucket, festive, or the street outside. And the streets, they're already decorated with other people's business. Hope you like landmines. Breakfast is waiting. And by waiting, I mean a rock, hard piece of bread that could double as a medieval throwing weapon. You gnaw on it until your gums bleed. Then wash it down with weak owl. Not because you're a cool Viking with a drinking problem, but because water is so contaminated it'll kill you faster than the plague. So yes, even your 5-year-old drinks beer for breakfast. Cheers. You're still hungry. Tough luck. Meat is a rare luxury. Cheese, if you're lucky, tastes like something between wet socks and regret. And fruit, forget it. Vitamin C is a foreign concept, which means congratulations, you're also on track to develop scurvy. But hey, no time to dwell. The sun is up and so are you. Your day off doesn't exist. The fields don't plough themselves. And if you refuse, enjoy starving, freezing, or worse, getting flogged for laziness. Motivation achieved. So here you are, teeth rotting, stomach empty, smelling like fermented despair, and you haven't even started your day yet. This is just the morning routine. Forget skincare products. Your pores are clogged with wood smoke and cow dander. Your hair hasn't seen shampoo in, well, ever. And the cherry on top, the plague hasn't even arrived in your town yet. You're still living in normal times. Imagine how bad has to be if this counts as the good part. Congratulations. You've made it to breakfast. Don't get too excited. It's not pancakes, bacon, and a caramel latte. This is 1347, not IHAPE. Your meal is a crust of bread so hard it could break a window. Honestly, if you threw it at someone, you'd risk manslaughter charges. The bread is usually rye or barley, dense and stale. Fresh bread is for nobles and feast days. Yours has been sitting around for so long it's halfway to becoming a fossil. If you're lucky, you can dunk it into a bowl of watery onion soup. If you're unlucky, it's just dry bread and the faint hope of not choking. And let's not forget the owl. That's right, beer for breakfast. Not because medieval peasants were raging alcoholics, though some probably weren't, but because water is basically poison. Wells are often contaminated with sewage, animal remains, and whatever your neighbour dumped in there last night. So, kids drink ale, pregnant women drink ale, grandma drinks ale. Everyone is slightly buzzed all day long, which honestly might be the only way to cope with this nightmare. Fruit, hilarious. Vegetables, if you're in season. Most of the time it's cabbage, beans, or onions. Vitamin C deficiency is so common that your gums are already plotting mutiny. Cheese, sure, but don't picture smooth cheddar or brie. Think more along the lines of chalky brick with hints of barnyard. Meat, forget it, unless it's a festival or you manage to steal something from a noble's pigsty. And portions, tiny. You're a peasant. You don't get full. Hunger is just part of the vibe. Malnutrition is your normal state of being. Which is fantastic timing, by the way, because a weakened immune system is exactly what the upcoming plague ordered. Let's put this into perspective. Your modern breakfast. Cereal, eggs, fruit, coffee. Maybe a smoothie if you're feeling fancy. Your medieval breakfast. Bread, onions, sadness, and a light buzz. And don't even think about complaining. If you whine about the menu, your parents will tell you to be grateful you're not dead. Which, statistically speaking, you probably will be soon anyway. The funniest part, this diet is considered totally normal. Nobody's counting calories. Nobody's asking if the bread is gluten-free. Nobody's juicing kale. You eat what you get or you starve. Those are the options. So chew that rock, hard bread. Sip your weak ale. I know that this is as good as it gets, because once the plague rolls into town, your breakfast of despair might be your last breakfast ever. Welcome to your humble abode. And by humble, I mean depressing. Forget cozy cottages with flower boxes and storybook charm. Your home is basically a damp wooden box where privacy, comfort, and basic dignity go to die. First things first size, the entire house is one room, maybe two if you're wealthy, say which you're not. The floor, dirt, not polished hardwood, not tile, not even cheap laminate, dirt. Which means when it rains, congratulations, you've just upgraded to mud flooring. Free of charge. Now, who lives here? Everyone. You, your parents, your siblings, your grandparents, and because heating a separate barn would be too luxurious, your livestock. That's right, your cow is in the living room. The chickens, roaming freely, decorating the floor with surprises. The pig, snoring in the corner like an obese roommate. Basically, you're living in a medieval Airbnb, where the pets are also your roommates, except you can't leave a bad review. The smell? Oh, it's a masterpiece. Imagine smoke from the fire pit blending with manure, sweat, wet straw, and mold. It hits you in the face like a medieval cologne called Oody, why am I alive? And here's the best part. No windows. Light and air are luxury goods. Instead, the room is smoky and dim, so your lungs are working overtime on second-hand firewood fumes. Congrats, you're inventing asthma centuries ahead of schedule. Furniture. Minimal. A rough table, maybe a stool or two, and your straw bed. That doubles as a bug sanctuary. Storage is just a chest if you're lucky. And decor? Ha! The only wall art you have is soot stains. Privacy? Non-existent. You eat, sleep, argue, and probably get scolded by your mother while your siblings stare at you. All in the same room. Want alone time? Too bad. The closest thing to personal space is stepping outside to empty the chamber pot. Speaking of chamber pots, let's address sanitation. You're peeing and pooping in a bucket, indoors, surrounded by your family and animals. The bucket gets emptied into the street, so congratulations, you're also walking through yesterday's dinner on your way to work. Sewer systems exist, but only in fancy Roman ruins you've never seen. Compare this to your modern apartment. Sure, maybe your rent is absurd and your landlord ignores your calls, but you still have running water, heating, maybe even Wi-Fi. In 1347, you're squatting in a smoky shack, hoping your cow doesn't step on your foot. So this is your castle. This is where you'll spend your short, itchy, malnourished life. And in a few months, when the plague slithers into town, this cramped, airless, animal-filled hut will be the perfect place to spread it. Sweet home, medieval edition. Forget about weekends. Forget about work-life balance. In 1347, your life is work. If you're not working, you're starving. Those are the only two options. And spoiler, they both suck. If you're a peasant, the fields are your entire universe. Sunrise isn't golden hour. It's the signal to grab a hoe, stumble outside, and spend the next 12 hours breaking your back in dirt that hates you, plowing, planting, weeding, harvesting, rinse and repeat until your body feels like it's been run over by a wagon. By the age of 20, you've basically got the spine of a retired wrestler. Tools? Primitive. Heavy wooden plows dragged by oxen that smell worse than your brother. Shovels with splintered handles. Your hands are covered in blisters that never really heal, because banned, AIDS won't exist for another 600 years. And it's not like you can call in sick, break a leg, too bad. Drag yourself to the fields anyway. Coughing up blood? Doesn't matter, that's just another Tuesday. The farm doesn't wait, and neither do your taxes. If you slack off, your family doesn't eat. Or worse, your lord notices, and suddenly you're getting extra motivation. in the form of a whip. But hey, maybe you're not a farmer. Maybe you're a blacksmith or a tanner. Congratulations! Instead of breaking your back in the fields, you're inhaling toxic fumes or working next to vats of urine-soaked hides. Truly a dream career path. And payment? Forget salaries or promotions. You're working for survival, a crust of bread, a pot of soup, maybe. If the stars align, a scrap of meat once a week. That's your paycheck. Your Christmas bonus is not starving to death in January. Oh, and don't expect to get ahead. There's no ladder here, just a hamster wheel. You work so your kids can grow up and work. Generational wealth. No generational back pain. And here's the real punchline. All this misery still won't save you. You can work your fingers to the bone, pull the best harvest, and keep your family fed, and the plague will still roll in and wipe you out in days. Fleas don't care about your work ethic. Rats don't give performance reviews. So you grab your shovel, ignore the screaming in your muscles, and head out into the fields. Because in medieval Europe, the only thing harder than working all day is not working at all. Let's talk hygiene, or more accurately, the total absence of it. If you're picturing medieval peasants taking daily bubble baths with lavender-scented soap, stop. Your entire bath routine in 1347 boils down to maybe wash once a year if the river isn't frozen and if you don't drown first. Soap exists, technically. But for peasants like you, nope. Too expensive. Instead, you get water, sometimes. Which means your hair is greasy enough to fry an egg, your fingernails are black with soil, and your armpits could double as a biological weapon. Everyone smells, all the time. The whole village is basically one big middle school locker room, minus deodorant, plus manure. Now, what about toilets? Indoor plumbing won't show up for centuries. Your options are a one-stand squat over a hole in the ground. A two use a wooden bucket and dump it out the window. Or us three just go in the street like everyone else. The streets of your town aren't cobblestone pathways. They're open air sewers decorated with human waste, rotting food, and animal guts from the butcher. Every stroll is an obstacle course of disease. Teeth, don't ask. No toothbrushes, no floss. You might rub your gums with a rag if you're fancy. Your breath smells like the inside of a compost heap, and your molars are already halfway gone by the time you're 25. And dentistry. The local surgeon will happily yank out a tooth with pliers while humming a hymn. No anesthesia. Just vibes. And let's not forget laundry. You own exactly one outfit. Maybe two if you're shockingly lucky. Washing it requires hauling buckets of water, heating them over a fire, scrubbing the cloth with lye, and then praying it doesn't fall apart. Most people don't bother. You just keep wearing the same dirt and sweat-soaked tunic until it can practically walk away on its own. Now combine all this: no baths, no soap, no clean water, no toilets, no fresh clothes. Add in fleas, lice, and rats crawling around your house, and you've got the perfect recipe for, you guessed it, the plague. The germs are practically holding a welcome party in your bloodstream already. Modern, you might think, I'd just tough it out. No, you wouldn't. You'd last about 48 hours before begging for a hot shower and a toothbrush. In medieval Europe, personal hygiene isn't a thing. Dirt is part of life, stench is part of identity, and disease. Disease is inevitable. So congratulations, you smell like death already, which is pretty convenient, because death is right around the corner. So you've survived the morning in your bug-infested bed, choked down your rock, hard bread, and pretended hygiene doesn't matter. Time to head into town. Spoiler, it's not much better. Picture it. The market square, the bustling heart of medieval life. Except it doesn't smell like fresh bread and roasted meat. No, it smells like sweat, rotten fish, animal dung, and something suspiciously corpse, like wafting in from who knows where. The whole place is basically a scratch and sniff sticker labelled, "Do not scratch." The streets aren't paved. They're mud when it rains, dust when it's dry, and always filled with waste. Remember those chamber pots dumped out the window? Yeah, they're here, right under your shoes. Every trip to the market is also a game of try not to step in human excrement. Spoiler, you lose. And rats. Everywhere. They dart between stalls, scamper over your boots, and fight each other for scraps. Fleas ride them like medieval Uber. just waiting for the chance to hop onto your legs. Congratulations. You're basically standing in the center of plague distribution headquarters. The market itself is chaos. Farmers yelling about their onions. Butchers hacking at slabs of meat on tables crawling with flies. Fishmongers waving around yesterday's catch that smells like it already died twice. You want fresh food? Too bad. There's no refrigeration, no hygiene inspections, no sell-by dates. If it doesn't make you sick immediately, it will in a few hours. Bon appetit. And crowds. Oh, the crowds. People pressed shoulder to shoulder, coughing, sneezing, spitting, shouting. Nobody covers their mouth because, well, germ theory doesn't exist yet. You're inhaling a cocktail of other people's breath, sweat, and particles you'd really rather not identify. Entertainment. Sure, if you count drunks brawling in the street, or a juggler dropping knives onto his own foot. Maybe a travelling preacher shouting about the end of days. Which, to be fair, he's not wrong about. Now, imagine this environment once whispers of the plague reach your town. One sick sailor, one infected rat, one flea in the wrong place, and the market becomes a death trap. Everyone packed together, breathing the same air, touching the same coins, eating the same questionable meat. It's less bustling economy and more biological time bomb. Modern you complains about Walmart lines or crowded subways. Kim in 1347, going to the market is like willingly diving into a swimming pool full of bacteria. And the worst part, you don't even get a bargain. So welcome to town life. It's loud, it's filthy, it's dangerous. And it's exactly the kind of place where a little thing like the Black Death spreads faster than gossip. And trust me, medieval gossip travels fast. Life has been miserable, sure. But at least it's predictable. You wake, you work, you eat stale bread, you smell terrible, repeat. But lately, there's a new kind of unease. Whispers. Rumours drifting in from the ports. It starts with ships. Merchant vessels drifting into harbours across Europe, carrying cargo, sailors and something else. Sometimes the ships arrive half empty. Not because people stayed home, but because most of the crew is dead. The survivors stumble off, feverish, covered in black swellings. They collapse on the docks, and by the next morning they're gone. People are nervous, but they don't understand. How could they? Germ theory won't exist for another 500 years. Nobody knows about bacteria or fleas. To them, this isn't an infection, it's punishment. God is angry. The stars are misaligned. Maybe the air itself is poisoned. Still, the stories spread. Tales of sudden illness that kills within days. Sailors coughing blood. Entire households wiped out. Some laugh it off. Just more sailor talk. But others notice how fast it travels. From the Black Sea, to Constantinople, to Messina, to Genoa, like a shadow sweeping west. And here's the scary part, trade doesn't stop. Goods keep moving. So do rats, and fleas, and death. Hitching a ride in every crate of grain and bundle of cloth. While peasants like you are busy hauling firewood or arguing with the neighbour about who dumped manure in the street. The plague is already on its way. Superstition kicks in. Some say it's bad air, miasma, rising from swamps and corpses. Others claim it's the work of outsiders, foreign merchants, or worse, witches. And people love a scapegoat. Because blaming someone feels easier than facing the truth nobody's safe. You overhear whispers at the market. A neighbour says her cousin in Venice saw a whole street die in less than a week. Another swears the bodies were so many they had to dig pits and pile them in. You laugh nervously, but deep down you feel it, the dread. And here's the cruel part. You can't prepare. There's no vaccine, no masks, no soap stockpile. You can't just stay home. Your home is filthy and full of rats anyway. You're powerless, watching the rumours grow darker every day, knowing that whatever this is, it doesn't stop at borders. The whispers are turning into screams. And soon, it won't be a story about distant ports or unlucky sailors. Soon, it will be your town, your street, your house. And when it arrives, you'll wish all you had to worry about was bad bread and fleas. The whispers are over. The plague isn't some faraway rumour anymore. It's here. And you know at the moment you see the first neighbour fall sick. At first, it looks like a bad fever. People complain of headaches, chills, exhaustion. Nothing unusual. Life in 1347 already makes everyone look half dead. But then the real signs appear. Buboes. Large, Black swellings the size of apples forming under the armpits, in the groin, along the neck. They're hot, they're painful, and they reek. Touch one and the skin feels like it's on fire. Then comes the vomiting, the coughing of blood. People spitting red into the dirt until they collapse. Their skin darkens, mottled with bruises that spread like ink under parchment. That's why it's called the Black Death. Not poetic, just descriptive. Your body literally turns black as it shuts down. The speed is terrifying. A healthy man wakes up fine, goes to work in the fields, and by sundown, he's delirious with fever. By morning, he's gone. Sometimes entire households vanish in days. 1 minute they're shouting at the market, the next, silence. And the fear spreads faster than the disease itself. Nobody knows what causes it. Nobody knows how to stop it. Priests preach repentance. Astrologers blame the stars. Some claim it's a curse. Others swear it's poisoned wells. Everyone agrees on one thing. If you see those black swellings, it's already too late. Doctors, useless. The best they can offer is bloodletting, herbs, or maybe smearing the buboes with a paste of crushed flowers and dung. Yes, dung. Imagine being on your deathbed and the cure is literally manure rubbed on your skin. Comforting. And it's not rare. It's everywhere. Every street you walk down, you hear the same coughing, the same groaning, the same prayers muttered in desperation. The sound of shovels digging graves never stops. Bells toll constantly, announcing yet another death. Modern, you might think. I'd be careful. I'd avoid sick people. Cute. In a town where everyone shares water, food, and air, avoiding contact is impossible. You live crammed in a hut with your family and livestock. Once it's in your house, it's game over. So here's your reality check. You're itchy from fleas, starving from bad harvests, reeking from no hygiene. And now, the deadliest disease Europe has ever seen is clawing its way into your neighborhood. One day you're gnawing on stale bread, the next, you're coughing blood into the same dirt your neighbor dumped their chamber pot in yesterday. The symptoms aren't just beginning, they're spreading. And once they start, there's no coming back. When the plague arrives, panic follows. But not the kind you know today. No frantic Googling symptoms, no government press conferences, no hand sanitizer hoarding. In 1347, your only explanation for the horror around you is that God is furious. And so religion becomes both your shield and your scapegoat. The church bells never stop ringing. Priests lead processions through the streets, holding crosses and relics, chanting prayers loud enough to drown out the coughing. People kneel, wail, confess sins they didn't even remember committing. Every sneeze feels like judgment, every cough like punishment. And then there are the flagellants. Groups of men wandering from town to town, whipping themselves bloody in the streets. They believe the plague is God's wrath, and that by suffering publicly, they'll earn forgiveness for everyone's sins. Imagine walking home from the market and seeing 30 half-naked guys beating themselves with chains, chanting hymns while spraying blood around like it's some unholy sprinkler system. Comforting, right? Not all the panic is so pious. Some people turn to relics, bits of wood from the true cross, bones of saints, vials of holy water. Spoiler, none of it works. You can kiss the skull of Saint whoever, but the fleas don't care. The plague still finds you. Others believe the air itself is cursed. Miasma, they call it. Bad air rising from swamps and corpses. To fight it, people walk around with flowers stuffed up their noses. Or they burn herbs indoors until their houses smell like an overcooked spice rack. And when the plague doctor finally arrives in his bird mask, what's he carrying inside that creepy beak? Yep, flowers and herbs. Because nothing says medical expertise like cosplaying as a giant crow. The desperation spirals. Some pray harder, some drink harder. Others abandon religion altogether, deciding that if God really wanted them dead, they might as well enjoy what little time they had left. It's chaos. Half the town parading through the streets with crucifixes, the other half drunk on ale, and all of them coughing into the same smoky air. And here's the cruelest part, none of it matters. The plague doesn't care how many prayers you whisper, or how many lashes you whip across your back. It doesn't care how many relics you buy, or how much incense you burn. Faith or no faith, the outcome is the same. So as the bells toll again, and another funeral procession passes by, you realize something chilling. Even God's house isn't safe. Monks are dying. Priests are dying. Whole monasteries are falling silent. If faith can't save them, what chance do you have? When people don't understand something, they look for someone to blame. And in 1347, nobody understands the plague. Germs are a mystery. Fleas are invisible. Rats are just rats. So the townsfolk do what humans always do when terrified. They point fingers. At first, it's vague. The air must be poisoned. The stars must be misaligned. Maybe it's a curse, or maybe God's just really, really mad. But vague explanations aren't enough. Fear demands a face, and soon the rumours begin. Foreign merchants, suspicious. Outsiders arriving at the ports, definitely guilty. Witches, obviously. And then, tragically, repeatedly, Jewish communities across Europe become the prime scapegoat. Whispers spread that Jews are poisoning wells, spreading disease on purpose, working in secret with the devil. Never mind that Jewish neighborhoods are dying from the plague too. Logic doesn't matter when hysteria takes over. Crowds gather, rage boils and violence follows. Whole communities are attacked. Houses are burned. Thousands are killed, not by the plague, but by their terrified neighbors looking for someone to blame. In some towns, the fear of your fellow man becomes just as dangerous as the disease itself. And it's not just Jews. Any outsider, any traveler, any person who looks or acts different becomes suspect. If you so much as cough in public, people might decide you're the source of all their misery. Imagine living in a world where one sneeze could get you killed. Not by illness, but by mob justice. But the scapegoating doesn't end with people. Animals get targeted too. Cats, in particular, are slaughtered in massive numbers because people think they're witches' familiars spreading the plague. Ironically, cats were the only ones keeping rat populations in check. Kill the cats, rats multiply, fleas spread faster, and the plague laughs in everyone's face. Medieval problem solving at its finest. Meanwhile, the real culprits, rats and fleas, are living their best lives, feasting on filth and carrying death from house to house. And the peasants, too busy burning neighbors and killing cats, don't even notice. It's human nature in its ugliest form. When the world feels out of control, people cling to the illusion that if they find the villain, they can kill the problem. But the plague isn't a villain you can stab or banish. It's invisible, it's everywhere, and it doesn't care who you blame. So as your town descends into paranoia, you face two dangers: the disease in the air and the mob outside your door. Either way, survival odds just dropped again. You're sick, your neighbor's sick, half the town is sick. Time to call a doctor, right? Well, doctor, in 1347 is a generous term. First up, the fashion icon, the plague doctor. You've seen the outfit in Mims. A long dark robe, leather gloves, and that creepy bird mask with the beak. Looks terrifying, right? That was the point. The mask was stuffed with herbs, flowers, and vinegar-soaked cloth, because they thought bad air caused the plague. So, if you're dying in bed and this giant crow man waddles in carrying a stick, congratulations, you're being treated by someone whose medical degree came from cosplay. And what do they actually do? Well, here's a list of cutting-edge 14th century cures: bloodletting. Cut you open to balance your humours. You're already weak and dehydrated. Perfect, let's drain a pint of blood for good measure. Onion or garlic paste rubbed on your buboes until your skin burns. Spoiler, still fatal. Live chickens, yes. Sometimes they strapped a plucked chicken to your swelling because reasons. Allegedly, the bird would suck out the poison. In reality, both you and the chicken die. Herbal smoke burning rosemary, lavender, or literally anything to cleanse the air. Your house ends up smelling like a medieval potpourri, but you're still coughing blood. Drinking potions, fancy blends of mercury, arsenic, or crushed gemstones. Great for killing you slightly faster. And of course, when all else failed, prayer, which worked about as well as rubbing yourself with onions. But hey, at least it smelled nicer. Here's the cruel joke. Most doctors couldn't help you even if they wanted to. Medical knowledge was so primitive, they thought illness came from bad smells, evil spirits, or an imbalance of the body's four humus, a blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile, fleas, bacteria, never even considered. And the cost, astronomical. If you're a poor peasantess and a new art, you can't even afford these useless treatments, which might actually increase your survival odds, because at least you won't be bled to death by a quack in a bird mask. Modern medicine may feel expensive, but at least your doctor doesn't prescribe. Apply dead toad to bubo, repeat 3 times daily. Back then, it was your best option. So when the coughing starts, the swelling grows, and your neighbours tell you to call for help, remember this: the help is a man with a stick, a beak full of flowers, and 0 chance of saving you. At this point, you're better off petting a stray cat and hoping for the best. Oh wait, everyone killed the cats already. At first, you notice the bells. They toll once, twice, then again. Each ring marks another death, another body carried through the streets. Eventually, the bells don't stop at all. They become the soundtrack of your life. The dead are everywhere. In your home. It's your brother coughing blood on the straw mat until he falls silent. In the street, it's neighbours wrapped in sheets, carted away by men holding cloths over their mouths. Entire families vanish in days. Doors left hanging open like the house itself gave up. You can't avoid the smell. Rotting flesh, sweat smoke, and the sweet, sour stench of decay. The air is heavy with it. You gag, but you can't escape. Death doesn't respect closed doors. The stench seeps through cracks, clings to your clothes, curls into your hair. The town itself becomes quieter, eerily so. The markets thin out, workshops close. Laughter, song, and even shouting fade, replaced by coughing, weeping, and prayers muttered under breath. The only sound that never fades. The rumble of wheels carrying the dead to mass graves. Children cry for parents who aren't coming back. Priests stumble from house to house, trying to bless the sick until they too collapse. Even the wealthy can't buy their way out. Nobles, merchants, beggars, it doesn't matter. The plague doesn't discriminate. And still, daily life continues in the strangest ways. You see mothers trying to barter bread while clutching feverish babies. Farmers dragging themselves into fields, coughing between swings of the hoe because hunger doesn't pause for grief. Rats scurry through the streets, feasting on scraps next to half-covered corpses. Life and death exist side by side, awkward roommates that refuse to move out. Humour, once your only shield, doesn't land anymore. The jokes about bad bread or smelly neighbours feel hollow when the neighbour is already gone. Survival feels less like living and more like waiting your turn. You start to notice small things changing inside yourself. You don't flinch when you see a body cart roll by. You don't cry when another relative falls ill. You're too numb. Death has become ordinary, routine. And that's the scariest part. Modern disasters come with news anchors, warning systems, evacuation plans. Here there's nothing. Just silence, smoke, and the endless toll of bells reminding you that no matter how hard you fight, you can't outrun what's coming. Death is everywhere. In your house, in your street, in your breath. And it's only getting worse. Here's the thing about the Black Death: it kills so many people, so quickly, that even death itself can't keep up. Normally, burials are respectful affairs. Bells ring, families mourn, priests say prayers, and the body gets lowered gently into the earth. Dignity, closure, ritual. Not anymore. Now, there are too many bodies. The priests are overwhelmed, the graveyards are full, and the living are too terrified to even touch the dead. So the solution? Dig giant pits, throw everyone in, cover them with dirt, repeat. Congratulations, you've just invented the medieval version of a landfill. The carts rumble through the streets daily, piled with corpses. Some are wrapped in sheets, others just dumped in as they were. Families can't even keep up with digging graves for their own. It's, grandma. But you're going in the trench with a neighbour and 3 butchers. The plague doesn't care about your family name, and neither do the grave diggers. The smell is indescribable. Imagine garbage day. But the garbage is people, and there's no pickup schedule. The pits reek for miles. Animals sniff around the edges. Rats treat the trenches like an all-you-can-eat buffet. And here's the twisted comedy of it. Some people try to make the pits look holy. They toss in a cross, sprinkle some holy water, mumble a prayer or 2. But when you're standing next to a hole stuffed with 100 bloated bodies, no amount of incense is fixing that vibe. The gravediggers themselves, a cheery bunch, if only because they've gone completely numb. They crack jokes, drink on the job, and toss bodies like they're stacking firewood. You can't blame them. When death becomes your 9 to 5, either you laugh or you collapse. Families beg for proper burials, but there's no time, no space, no priests left. You want dignity? Too bad. Your final resting place is shoulder to shoulder with strangers, dumped unceremoniously in a pit. Medieval community spirit at its finest. Modern you might be horrified. Mass graves. That's unthinkable, but in 1347, it's the only option. Death is coming faster than anyone can keep up with, and honestly, with your luck, you'll end up in there soon, covered in dirt, indistinguishable from the butcher, the baker, and the guy who owed you 3 onions. The plague takes your individuality, your dignity, and eventually your burial. All you get is a spot in the pit and a bell toll that nobody remembers. Sweet dreams. The plague doesn't just kill bodies, it kills trust. Families that once clung to each other through hunger and hard winters suddenly start falling apart the moment the Black Death crosses the threshold. Picture it. Your brother starts coughing blood. Yesterday he was fine. Today he's sweating, delirious, and covered in buboes. Everyone in the house knows what's coming, and instead of gathering around his bed with comfort and prayers, people start backing away. You love him, sure. But you also love not dying. Parents abandon children. Children abandon parents. Husbands slip out in the night. Wives bar doors against their own families. The plague isn't just contagious, it's terrifying. And fear makes people cruel. When you realize touching your sick son might mean joining him in the grave by next week, suddenly, family bonds look a lot more optional. It gets worse. Some families don't even wait for the end. They drag the sick out into the street, slam the door shut, and hope the cart comes by soon. Others barricade themselves inside, refusing to open up no matter how much their neighbors scream for help. Love gets replaced by survival instinct, and survival instinct doesn't share beds or soup bowls. And it's not just peasants, even the wealthy flee. Nobles abandon their estates, locking servants and workers inside to fend for themselves. Entire cities empty of rulers who scurry to the countryside, convinced fresh air and distance will keep them safe. Spoiler, the plague follows anyway. Humor becomes cruel too. People mutter that, "At least the dead don't need dinner," or joke about how many onions they'll save now that half the family is gone. It's not funny, but what else can you do? When grief is everywhere, the only way to cope is to laugh in the face of it, even if the laughter sounds more like despair. Imagine this in modern times: your roommate gets the flu, and instead of fetching medicine, you throw them into the hallway and change the locks. That's what's happening here. Except it's not the flu, and death shows up quicker than pizza delivery. So here's your reality check: the family you rely on for comfort, protection, and survival. They might be the ones who shove you into the street the moment you start coughing. And when the choice is, hold my loved one's hand, or live another week, most people pick the second option. In the age of the Black Death, love is conditional, and the condition is, don't get sick. When death shows up at your door, the first instinct is obvious: run. Pack your things, your bread crust, your one tunic, maybe the family goat, and get the hell out of town. If you move fast enough, maybe you can outrun the plague. Except you can't. The wealthy are the first to bolt. Nobles flee their estates, retreating to country villas surrounded by fresh air and high walls. They take servants, carts of food, barrels of wine. They imagine themselves safe, sipping all by the fire while peasants rot in the streets. Spoiler, the rats and fleas hitch a ride. Death doesn't check social class at the door. Merchants flee to neighboring towns. But guess what? They bring the plague with them. Every port city, every roadside inn becomes a plague delivery hub. Thanks to human panic, the Black Death spreads faster than medieval gossip. And then there's you, a peasant. Where do you think you're going? You don't have money for a horse, or a cart, or even enough food to last the journey. You've got your legs, your family, and whatever you can carry on your back. You set out down muddy roads with hundreds of others, hoping the next town will be safer. But it's not. When you reach the gates, guards slam them shut. No entry, plague town, they shout from behind wooden walls. They'd rather leave strangers to starve outside than risk letting the sickness in. So you trudge to the next village, and the next, each one bolting the gates as soon as they see your wary, coughing group arrive. Medieval. Quarantine. Looks a lot like exile. The roads are littered with desperate people. Families dragging sick children. Beggars collapsing in ditches. Travellers sleeping in barns if they're lucky, under the open sky if not. Starvation picks off the slowest. Wolves follow the trails, sniffing the weak. It's less family road trip, more apocalyptic death march. And the worst part, you can't even escape your own fear. Every sneeze from the person walking beside you feels like a death sentence. Every bubo spotted under someone's collar makes you edge away. And yet you're all crammed together on the same road, sharing the same air, marching toward the same fate. Modern, you might say, I'd stay put, safer at home. Cute idea, but your home is a flea-infested shack already crawling with death. Run or stay, it doesn't matter. The plague is faster than your feet, hungrier than your stomach, and smarter than your plans. So go ahead. Run. Flee to the hills, the woods, the next town over. You're not escaping the Black Death. You're just delivering it. The plague is here. People are dropping like flies. You're terrified. So what do? Well, in 1347, you don't have antibiotics, vaccines, or even soap. What you do have are survival tricks. And by tricks, I mean completely useless, occasionally hilarious, and almost always disgusting. First up, posies. Everyone's walking around with flowers shoved up their noses, convinced that sweet smell will block out the bad air, miasma, that supposedly spreads the plague. Spoiler, it doesn't. All it does is make your corpse smell faintly of lavender. Then there's smoke therapy. People burn herbs, spices, or just random junk to cleanse the air. So your house ends up filled with rosemary smoke until you're coughing harder than before. Some even burn shoes or old rags. Nothing says healing, like choking on the smell of smouldering leather. Vinegar baths are another hit. Rub yourself with vinegar. Drink vinegar. Bathe in vinegar. You don't cure anything. You just end up sticky, stinging, and smelling like a rejected salad dressing. And for the rich, gems. Yes, some nobles think grinding up sapphires, rubies, or emeralds into a fine powder and swallowing it will save them. Imagine paying a fortune just to give yourself the world's most expensive kidney stones. But the award for worst cure goes to the live chicken treatment. The idea: pluck a chicken, strap it to your buboes, and let it absorb the poison. No joke. The chicken eventually dies, and if you're unlucky, so do you, covered in feathers and shame. Honestly, the only winner here is the chicken, who at least doesn't have to live in the 14th century anymore. Some people take a more spiritual approach. Whip yourself in the streets until your back looks like raw meat, hoping God notices your effort. Others flee to mountains, lock themselves in cellars, or drink themselves senseless. None of it works. The plague doesn't care if you smell like vinegar, onions, or desperation. And here's the real punchline sometimes. The people who did nothing had better odds of survival. While everyone else was busy strapping poultry to their bodies and inhaling shoe smoke, the lucky few whose immune systems fought back quietly lived on. Modern, you laughs, but think about it. If tomorrow someone said, TikTok cure for the plague, eat 3 cloves of garlic and dance under the moon, half the internet would try it. Medieval people weren't dumb. They were desperate. And desperation makes you do really stupid things. So go ahead, pick your trick. Flowers in your nose, chicken on your armpit, gemstone smoothie, none of it matters. In the end, the plague wins, and you just die slightly more embarrassed. The Black Death isn't just killing people, it's killing the economy. Whole villages are collapsing, fields are empty, shops are closed, and suddenly money doesn't mean what it used to. Spoiler, you can't bribe the plague. Let's start with farming. Peasants are dying so fast that nobody's left to plant or harvest. The crops rot in the fields. The cows wander off. Chickens are pecking through abandoned huts like they've just inherited the property. And the survivors? They're not rushing to work. They're demanding higher wages. After all, when half the workforce is in a trench somewhere, your labour suddenly has value. Congratulations, you just invented medieval capitalism. Of course, the nobles hate this. They try to enforce old rules. You must work the land for the same pitiful wages. But here's the problem. Peasants have options now. If one lord won't pay better, they wander off to another who will. Imagine feudal landlords sitting around like angry CEOs, panicking because their entire workforce just rage quit. In towns, it's no better. Markets thin out, craftsmen die so goods vanish. Want new shoes. Too bad, the cobbler's dead. Need bread. The baker's whole family is gone. The economy is like a Jenga tower someone kicked over, and everyone's scrambling to pick up the pieces. And then there's inheritance chaos. With so many people dying, land and wealth transfer at record speed. Some survivors suddenly find themselves rich overnight. Uncles, cousins, half the family gone, leaving property behind. Peasants become landowners, servants become merchants. Basically, if you survive, you might move up in life, after you bury everyone ahead of you in line. But here's the comedy and the tragedy. Sometimes there's so much inheritance that people don't even know what to do with it. Fields sit empty, houses rot, livestock wander free because the new owners are too few or too terrified to take it on. Imagine inheriting 3 farms, 2 houses and 50 goats in 1349, and all you can think is, great, now I get to starve on more land. Meanwhile, coin itself starts losing meaning. What's the point of money when there's nothing left to buy? You could be sitting on a chest of silver, but if there's no baker, good luck eating those coins. In some towns, bartering comes back strong. Onions for shoes, grain for cloth. The entire system regresses, because half the participants are, well, dead. So the economy collapses, wages rise, landlords scream, peasants walk, and rats run the show. If you survive the plague, you might actually end up richer. But odds are, you'll be too busy coughing blood to enjoy it. By now, the Black Death isn't just killing your body, it's wrecking your mind. Living through it is like starring in a never-ending horror film, except there's no popcorn, and the jump scares are your neighbors dropping dead in real time. First, there's the constant fear. Every cough, every sneeze, every itch could mean you're next. Someone scratches their neck beside you. Suddenly you're inspecting their armpit like an amateur plague detective. It's exhausting. Then there's the grief. You've lost family, friends, neighbors, maybe even your priest. Funerals aren't solemn gatherings anymore. They're conveyor belts. Bodies in, dirt on top, repeat. After a while, you stop crying because if you cried for everyone, you'd never stop. Emotional burnout, medieval edition. Paranoia takes over. You side-eye everyone you pass in the market. Did that guy just cough? Was that a bubo under her sleeve? Suddenly. Social distancing isn't a suggestion. It's survival instinct. Too bad your entire life is crammed shoulder to shoulder with other people. And then comes the nihilism. If death is certain, why bother? Some people give up completely. They stop working, stop praying, stop caring. Towns turn into ghost zones where survivors shuffle around, too drained to function. Why repair your roof when you'll be in a pit by Friday? But not everyone goes quiet. Others go wild. If tomorrow isn't guaranteed, why not drink until you can't stand? Why not steal, fight, party, or do all 3 at once? Medieval YOLO. Some groups even form roaming bands, carousing through towns in drunken oblivion, trying to laugh louder than the sound of funeral bells. Of course, religion adds to the mental chaos. Some people cling harder to faith, convinced the plague is divine punishment. They whip themselves bloody, cry in the streets, beg for forgiveness. Others decide God has abandoned them altogether and turn bitter angry, or downright atheist before atheism was even trendy. Either way, peace of mind. Gone. Humour becomes twisted too. Jokes about death, songs about skeletons, dances around graves. It's gallows humour, literally. If you laugh at death, maybe it feels less like it's laughing at you. And here's the kicker: kids grow up in this environment. Imagine being 10 years old, watching carts of corpses rumble past daily, listening to adults argue about which neighbour poisoned the well, and trying to sleep while your parents whisper about whether it's worth hiding in the cellar. Childhood trauma. Off the charts. So the plague isn't just physical. It crawls into your brain, gnaws at your sanity, and leaves you stuck between despair, paranoia, and drunken denial. Survive the disease, and you're still left with nightmares. In other words, congratulations. If the plague doesn't kill you, the mental breakdown probably will. You step outside one morning and instantly notice the silence. No blacksmith hammering. No market bickering. Not even your neighbour yelling at his goat for eating the laundry again. Just the sound of wind, buzzing flies, and a rat squeaking triumphantly because it now officially owns the street. Whole neighbourhoods are empty. Doors hang open like gaping mouths. Windows creak. Shutters slam. You peek inside one house and find a half-eaten loaf of bread, mugs knocked over, chairs pulled back. It's like everyone got up mid-dinner and said, "BRB dying," and never came back. Entire villages disappear like bad Wi-Fi. 1 week they're there, the next gone. You wander through expecting humans, and instead find sheep grazing where people used to pray, chickens roosting in abandoned bedrooms, and pigs helping themselves to whatever's left in the pantry. Honestly, animals are thriving. The rats are basically running a medieval Airbnb at this point. Nature, of course, doesn't care. Fields are overgrown, weeds crack through pathways, ivy eats entire walls. Everything you work so hard to plow, build, or patch up is just getting repossessed by Mother Nature. And she doesn't even send an eviction notice. For survivors, though, it's kind of a weird jackpot. Free houses everywhere. You can literally walk into an abandoned cottage and call it yours. Want to? Go ahead, no one's going to complain. Just ignore the faint smell coming from upstairs. Instant home ownership, courtesy of the plague. But the silence is unnerving. Sure. Markets used to be noisy and smelled like 10 different kinds of armpit, but at least they meant life. Now you walk through town and hear only your own footsteps. Way too loud, echoing like you're the last person alive. You start talking to stray cats just to feel less lonely. The cat, of course, ignores you, because cats didn't care in the 14th century either. The roads are no better. Once packed with merchants, pilgrims, gossip, and carts of questionable meat. Now they're so empty you could nap in the middle of them. When you finally see another human in the distance, you freeze. Do you wave? Do you run? Because in this world, strangers don't just carry rumours, they carry fleas. Modern, you might think. Peace and quiet, finally. No, this isn't cozy small town. This is post-apocalyptic ghost town. Think Times Square at noon. Totally silent. Pigeons staring at you like they're plotting something. That's the vibe. So congratulations. Europe is now half empty. The animals are landlords. The rats are mayors and you're just trying not to be the next abandoned house tour. For all the misery, something strange happens, people keep being people. Turns out, even during the apocalypse, humans are annoyingly good at finding ways to laugh, sing, and cling to scraps of joy. Picture it, half the town is gone. But in the corner of the marketplace, what's left of it? Someone's playing a lute. Kids still chase chickens through the mud, shrieking like it's the best game ever invented. A mother hums while stirring onion soup, even though it smells like despair. Life doesn't just stop, no matter how hard the plague tries. Songs spread too. Some are tragic ballads, others are straight-up plague memes in musical form. Yes, people made jokes about it. Because when your neighbour just dropped dead in the street, sometimes the only thing you can do is laugh awkwardly and sing about it. Gallows humour, medieval style. And then there's dancing. Not ballroom elegance, more like wild, chaotic circle dances in the street. Some are desperate prayers, others just drunken flailing. But for a few minutes, the coughing, the bells, the rats, it all fades under the rhythm of stomping feet and off-key singing. Communities cling to rituals as well. Festivals still happen, even if half the dancers are missing. Weddings go on. Because why not marry now if tomorrow you might be in a trench? Funerals turn into social events, with people swapping jokes and bread while the grave fills in. It's dark, it's weird, but it's also proof people adapt. And the humour? Oh, it's brutal. Jokes about the gravediggers needing overtime pay. Kids singing twisted nursery rhymes about death. Friends ribbing each other. Better eat that bread fast, you might not be here tomorrow. It's not funny. It's survival funny. The kind of humour that keeps your brain from melting under the weight of dread. Even the drunkards play their part. Taverns stay open, because of course they do. People crowd in, not caring about germs, not that they know germs exist. They drink, sing louder than the funeral bells, and stumble home through streets lined with corpses. If you squint, it almost looks like a Friday night out. And here's the thing. This stubborn spark of resilience matters. Without it, everyone would have curled up and waited to die. Instead, they laugh, sing, and cling to whatever scraps of joy they can steal from the darkness. Modern you might think you'd survive with sheer willpower and mental toughness. Cute. But the truth is, your medieval ancestors got through hell not because they were stronger, because they kept making jokes at the worst possible times. And maybe, just maybe, that's the only reason humanity's still here. So, after trudging through plague-ridden Europe, let's take a moment to compare it with your life. Spoiler, you'd never survive 1347, but you're doing great in 2025. Why? Because modern life is basically one big cheat code. Start with your bed. You complain when your memory foam mattress feels a little too firm. In the Middle Ages, your bed was a straw sack filled with bugs that doubled as a small ecosystem. Back then, rolling over meant lice bites. Today, it means grabbing your weighted blanket and checking TikTok. Big difference. Hygiene. You shower daily. You have body wash in flavors like ocean breeze and midnight vanilla. Medieval peasants had one body wash option: rain, maybe. Their daily fragrance was smoke, sweat, and manure. And don't even start on toothpaste. Most people's dental plan was hoping their teeth fell out slowly. Food. You cry when Uber Eats forgets your extra sauce. A peasant cried because their bread was rock, hard, and soup tasted like aught onion water with regret. They drank weak ale because the water could kill them. You drink oat milk lats, you are not the same. Medicine. Today, you pop ibuprofen for a headache. In 1347, the cure for migraines was strap a dead chicken to your head and pray. You've got vaccines, antibiotics, even hospital ERs. They had a guy in a bird mask waving herbs in your face. Entertainment. You get bored when Netflix doesn't play the next episode fast enough. A medieval binge. Watch was watching the neighbor's goat eat garbage for 2 hours. Exciting stuff. And let's talk complaints. You whine about Wi-Fi speed. They whined because their neighbor dumped human waste in the street again. You stress about your phone battery dying at 30%. They stressed about literally dying at 30. Even survival odds are laughably tilted. Today, catch a cold, you're fine. Catch an infection, you take antibiotics. Back then, a paper cut was a coin flip between heels in a week and bury him in the pit. So yeah, next time you grumble about slow Amazon shipping, remember in 1347, your package would have been a rat carrying fleas, and 2 days later you'd be coughing blood. Perspective. The modern world isn't perfect, but it's light years better than rotting in a flea-infested shack. Tonight, when you crawl into your clean bed, maybe whisper a thank you to plumbing, antibiotics, and yes, even Wi-Fi, because without those, you'd already be in a trench. So after everything, the rotten beds, the flea bites, the bread that doubles as a weapon, the mass graves, you're probably asking, would I survive the Black Death? Short answer, no. Long answer, absolutely not. Modern you wouldn't last a day. You can't even handle your phone battery dipping below 20%. Imagine handling fleas chewing on you all night, drinking warm ale for breakfast, and living in a hut that smells like barnyard air freshener. Add the plague on top. You'd fold faster than wet parchment. You might think, I'd be smarter. I'd avoid the sick, wash my hands more, quarantine. Cute idea. But soap isn't a thing for you. Water kills more people than it saves. And there's no quarantine when your entire house is one smoky room with 7 people, a cow and a chicken. Doctors. Nope. They'll bleed you until you faint, rub onions on your sores, or tie a dead chicken to your armpit. Germ theory is still 500 years away. Modern science is useless to you because you don't have it. The best case scenario is that you die slightly later than your neighbor. Even your immune system is against you. Medieval peasants grew up in filth, exposed to every disease imaginable. Their bodies were like grizzled veterans. Yours, soft, spoiled, used to hand sanitizer and filtered water. The plague wouldn't even break a sweat with you. And don't pretend you tough it out mentally. You panic when the Wi-Fi goes down for 10 minutes. Imagine living through funeral bells every hour, rats running across your floorboards. and your neighbours accusing you of poisoning wells. The anxiety alone would finish you before the plague even had the chance. The truth is, survival wasn't about smarts or strength. It was about luck. Random, brutal luck. Some people's immune systems fought it off. Some happened to be in the right place at the right time. Most didn't. That's it. No strategies, no hacks, no TikTok plague cures. Just chance. So would you survive? Not likely. The fleas would get you, the fever would take you, and the gravediggers would toss you in the trench with everyone else. End of story. But here's the upside: you don't live in 1347. You live in a world with vaccines, medicine, plumbing, coffee, and yes, even Netflix. Your ancestors already rolled the dice for you. You're here because someone somewhere managed to dodge the plague long enough to pass on their genes. So tonight, when you tuck into your clean sheets, take a moment. Breathe in that non-plague filled air. Sip your water without fear. And maybe, just maybe, thank the medieval survivors who suffered through fleas, onions, and dead chickens, so you wouldn't have to.